Moving on. Let's talk about Julian from New Rory and More. Some of you guys may know this drama that occurred a couple of days ago. Julian, an ex-producer of the New Rory and More podcast, these two podcasters who are formerly on the Joe Budden podcast, they fired this dude I think a year ago, or maybe a few months ago, sorry. And he hasn't really stopped shutting up talking about them. Now, to be fair to him in this regard, Rory recently randomly fired a shot at this guy, even though he stopped talking about them. So he felt he had to respond. And Julian responded and kind of laid out or provided more information as to maybe what led to him being fired, what led to the breakdown in their kind of, relationship, and maybe and gave us a little bit more of a sneak behind the scenes as to what goes on over that New Rory and More podcast. Now, we have to take what he has to say with a pinch of salt, because he's obviously a disgruntled employee, but I thought it was very interesting, the things he spoke about pertaining to like Rory and More and their behavior behind the scenes. Kind of disappointing, to be honest, especially if you're a fan of the show. But I want to play for you a clip from this actual whole podcast where he kind of speaks about Rory and Moore's
like brags about shit they supposed to do. Like, nah, no, you don't get like credit for doing what you was hired for. This is what you get paid for, to do this. Why are you throwing this in my face like you did something that you weren't asked to do? Just sit there and go, I did this, and it's like, nah, no, that was the agreement. Should I like give you a big hug because you did what you were supposed to do?
Nah, you got to put their name like in lights, and like every day they walk and have balloons for them.
So that's the background. That gives you a bit of the background as to why he's angry, why he's upset. Because, Julian will go on to say that, hey, I was quiet. I left these guys alone. I moved on. I got therapy. I'm working on myself. I've got a new job. I'm not thinking about these guys. And then they randomly threw a shot at him, right? So I understand why he feels the way he does. But let's move on to the other bit where he disses Miles' weight, which I really fucking liked. What is it? Around 325 right here. Around 325, Julian disses Miles' weight, which I thought was really, really funny. It's about here, right? There we go.
Because I know these guys, and they do this with every relationship that they have. Like, Rory, like, you're fumbling through a BetterHelp script when it's clear your therapy is just about as effective as Miles' diet.
Now, don't get me wrong. As funny as that is, it did kind of sound rehearsed. It kind of sounded like he wrote it down before, said it to himself in the mirror a couple of times to egg himself on, give himself some courage and shit. It didn't sound, spontaneous. But it's still hilarious because it's very much on point, especially when it comes to Rory's therapy. I think Rory and Joe Budden are the most, like, ineffective recipients of therapy. You don't really understand, Rory always talks about going to therapy, but you don't really see any evidence of it with his temperament, how he speaks. Joe Budden, of course, clearly is a known dickhead, known piece of shit. He allegedly goes to therapy, but he treats everybody around him like complete garbage. And the more this about diet is hilarious because allegedly Mole's a vegan or a vegetarian or something, right? But he's got bigger hips than what's his fucking name? The guy in the SNL band, It's kind of wild how Mole is allegedly a vegan and he's very rotund, a very, very rotund human being. So I thought that was a very, very on point and funny joke and observation, which I'm sure Rory and Mole especially, this was the most interesting and eye-opening bit, and the bit that I felt the baddest for Julian, right? This is the bit that I thought the worst for Julian. Julian details how sometimes his bosses would appear 2 hours late to the podcast recording. 2 hours late. Pretty crazy.
AKA role playing, if you're not familiar with the Fielder method. I know how this is going to go. This comes out on Tuesday, today, if you're listening, obviously. They're going to come into the studio. Well, when I was there, they recorded 3 days a week. I still think it's 3 days a week, but say Wednesday or Thursday. Who gives a shit? And I know how it's going to go. Rory and Damaris will be there because, the usual recording time's the call time used to be noon. That used to be, whatever, not happening. Now it's around 1 o'clock. So they'll be there at, 12:31, like normal people on time. And then they'll hang around for about an hour and a half, 2 hours waiting. God, I don't miss that. I do not miss just waiting. And then just sitting in anger and just sitting in burning time. And we all used to bond over that. Just like, oh, traffic must be crazy today, because that was always the excuse. And then at some point, in walks Maul. Here comes the elevator doors swing open. Maul walks in 2 hours later as if nothing happened. No, my bad. No, nothing. No word. No exchange of words. Nothing. Just gets right into the chair. Yo, what are we talking about today? Mind you, why we would used to get there at noon or 1 was because we used to have these things called production meetings. Imagine that. Imagine prepping and planning ahead of a recording. Those recordings, those production meetings would, to basically myself and Damaris would go through topics, Rory would contribute, and then we kind of banter on like certain things and then kind of figure out the shell of the episode.
So just imagine that for a moment. Imagine you work somewhere and your manager, your boss, always comes to work 2 hours late. Or let's say more than an hour late at least. Let's say more than half an hour. Consistently. What do you do in that situation? You're kind of fucked, innit? Because Rory and Moore are the owners of the new Rory and Moore podcast. So they can effectively do as they please because they own the show. So you don't really have anybody to complain about them to. There probably isn't any HR. Who do you complain to managerial wise? Rory. He's going to have Moore's back. And if vice versa, whoever was late, they're going to have each other's back. So there's nothing really you can do. You have to kind of swallow it. And it's really unfortunate because I think these little things can sometimes play a big role in you being unhappy at your job and then, eventually getting to a point where you get fired or you leave. Because I remember working in places, specifically in offices. One particular place I worked in was in like a market. I worked for a company. I was in the marketing division and I was doing marketing. I was a marketing and communication assistant, which basically meant I was writing these weekly newsletters. I was posting on social media. I was doing all the events like in stores. It was like a paint company. And I was going in stores to do like in-store demonstrations. I'd go to university open days. I'd go to university freshers and kind of like when a university fresher, there'll be like these events where local businesses will have stands and shell and shit, and grift little things, whatever. So I'd be on a stand signing kids up to get fucking free samples, telling them about the paint that they sell, and it's kind of blah, blah, blah. Now I remember the office was in some really big fancy office somewhere in West London, and it was a big corporate company. I think the marketing team at least had one floor, over 100 staff working across different areas, across different fucking regions. So I was one cog in one big machine. But I remember my direct line manager, my direct person who I kind of reported to, she would sometimes come in late, like on a consistent basis, 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes from like Thursday onwards. If you guys know about 9 to 5s, you know what happens. Monday to Wednesday, everyone's there on time, on point. And then for some reason, Thursday, suddenly people start working from home. They won't announce it the day before though. You get into the office and be like, hey guys, I'm working from home today. My cat is ill. My son needs to go to GP. My fucking boiler broke. There's always something that happens on a Thursday or Friday for some reason. But I noticed this lady wouldn't even work from home. She would just come to the office late every Thursday and Friday, which kind of was annoying because I remember stressing myself, rushing on the Thursday and the Friday to make sure I got to work on time, being really nervous that if I got there at fucking 9:03, 9:05, even though I never was late, to be honest, at work, which is odd, really, to be honest, because I'm always late to my streams. But when it came to my actual job, I was never ever pulled up for lateness. Never ever pulled up for lateness. It was one of the things that I was always in control of. If it's one thing I'm in control of, my kind of punctuality, I'd always kind of put that forward. Sorry, I've always do that and make sure I was always punctual. But it would always kind of piss me off and grind my gears because I was like, hold on, why am I rushing to work? Why am I fucking sweating on the overground, sweating on the central line to get here on time? When from Thursday to Friday, this woman will all the time turn up like 30 minutes late. And again, I couldn't complain to anybody because at that time, I think I was an intern, working that job I was working at. So I had zero rights. So I don't know. It was a strange feeling, man. It was a strange feeling when your boss turns up late, but you are always there on time, but you can't turn up late. If you do, like, and the unfair thing about this situation, I bet you, if there was one day that Julian turned up late, that would be the one day that Moore turned up early, and he'd call him out on it, So Julian wouldn't say anything all the times that Moore turns up late, but if Julian turns up one time late, that would be the time, coincidentally, that Moore would turn up on time, and he'd fucking call him out on it. So I really do feel his pain on this regard. I think this is really fucking crazy. I really do feel his pain on it, and I would imagine that kind of situation would be kind of hard to deal with in real time. Because what do you really do? What do you do if your manager's late? and it's a small company like this, or it's a, like, you know, whatever. What do you do? Who do you report him to? How do you address this? How do you make your grievances or your displeasure of it, you know, known? How? It's really, really hard. Big up Kettles Moses. Mole is shaped like a flabber pre-war on She-Rock DJ Academics. I love that. To us, Rory is carrying more. I don't think so. I'm going to say they both carry each other. In general, I think all the podcasts have suffered from the breakup. I think the Joe Budden podcast is not as good anymore without Rory and Moore. And I think Rory and Moore podcast isn't good as it would be without the involvement of Joe Budden and maybe even Parks, who I don't like myself. But I think both pods have suffered from the breakup greatly. But I don't think Rory is carrying more. I think they both equally carry each other. I think there are some episodes that are really great that they do. I do personally like the fact that they stay away from drama and shit. That is definitely something that I can kind of link up with. Although they do sometimes clickbait their clips on social to drive, you know, engagement or whatever in conversation. But I do like that they got like a different type of vibe and tone about them. I like that no one's kind of antagonizing the host to kind of get them to react to something. I kind of like it in general. So I'm not mad at the new Rory Moore podcast. I just wish they're all back together. Big up Z. I would quit and do my own show or work somewhere else. I worked for people like that. I needed their answers to do my work, and they would just ghost us when they wonder why everyone quits. I'm not checking in to be stranded, so you can tell me I don't work. Exactly. Good point. Good fucking point, Z. Good fucking point. So let's move on quickly. That talks about Julian's experience when he came to London. Now, this particular clip, this particular segment, I think Julian has no one to blame but himself here. I think this is him being too over eager to impress, being somewhat naive and immature maybe, and he only has himself to blame here. I don't think you can blame. So let's play this.
Say in the clip that I led with, well, we never said your name, but if you feel that way, if you feel like that was towards you, then, you know, maybe that was like, then maybe you were that person. Maybe you felt that way, as if, yes, that was right. You weren't thinking of me at all during that clip. That's right. You're right. You know what? You've convinced me otherwise. I did need balloons every time we started a recording. I did need someone to hold my hand and celebrate me and give me a gold star. You know what? Shame on me. That was who I was the whole time. You got me, buddy. I wasn't the person that was willing to go on tour, tour manage, help write, and perform on the shows without making a cent off tour. You're right.
By the way, that's not a good thing, but you shouldn't be bragging about that.
That must have not been me. I wasn't the person that flew myself out to London, I flew myself out to not work. I just wanted to be there and experience that because I'd never been to London. And then the day of the show, Benner got too fucking drunk at a bar across the street. The projector didn't work. And for those that are listening that are from our London that were at that first show, you know what I'm talking about. You saw how hard I was working. He's across the street just getting blackout drunk. I'm running in this old auditorium with this fucking 600 pound projector with these two, production assistants trying to figure out the show.
So, first mistake he did was paying for himself to go to London to help these guys out with their tour. He should never have done that. Nobody told you to go there. You paid it out of your own pocket to go there because you wanted to clout chase. You wanted to add it to your CV, I'm assuming. You wanted maybe to impress them. But you did this yourself. You should never have done that. He should have definitely asked or requested that they kind of pay for his flights, or if they needed their help, his help, they could have paid for his flights and invited him out there. But the fact that he invited himself, and now he's trying to use the fact that he invited himself as a reason to bash them, it's like, no. You did that yourself. You are to blame for whatever occurred, or however you were treated after the fact. I also don't like the fact that he threw under the bus whoever the Benner guy is. He threw that guy under the bus who was paid to be there. He threw him under the bus by saying, oh, that Benner guy you actually hired, he got blackout drunk. I end up having to do his job, plus my job, plus all the jobs. I'm awesome, pay me. It's like, no. That's your own fault. Benner, that guy was paid to be there. He got blackout drunk. That's his prerogative. You're not fucking, you don't get to judge and stand there and judge how you should be doing things. Or you don't get to kind of throw him under the bus and make yourself look good. It just sounds weird. And also the bit where he shouted at the fans. Oh yeah, you fans saw how hard I was working. How could the fans tell you're working hard? If you're running behind, back and forward in front of the stage, is that you working hard, or is that you just relaying messages from the people that actually are doing the work? It doesn't really make any sense.
And communicating with you guys where we're at, because the person that's paid to be there, the person that flew first class to be there, the person that you pay a managerial cut for, is across the street. Just
Jealousy, by the way. That sounds like jealousy. This sounds like he wanted to be Benner. That sounds like whatever deal Benner had, he wanted that for himself, and because he didn't get it, he was really fucking upset. Hence why he decided to say what he's saying now. But again, you should deal with these type of things behind the scenes. Finding out if there's a solution or if there's an option for you to get Benner's role, maybe proving yourself with the work that you're doing at home, making yourself somewhat indispensable. But I don't like this behavior. I don't like the behavior of throwing other staff members under the bus or getting them involved in the first place, mentioned by name, because it makes it sound like that person was on some fugazi shit, which they probably wasn't. It's all a fucking mess.
Blacking out and smoking and chain smoking cigarettes. But I should have I deserved flowers and a fucking a high five for my efforts. I'm sorry. I was asking for too much. It was my bad. I flew my.
You can't fly yourself out somewhere and then be entitled to feeling as if you should be congratulated for it. Like, I don't particularly agree with what he did, but maybe you can see it from the lens of like, hey, he was being like resourceful. He was being entrepreneurial. He was being motivated. He was being driven. He was trying to hustle, right? He's trying to make it out of the hood. So he's doing whatever necessary to get out of the hood. So you got that one drink, whatever, and try to kind of go from there. Fair play. But you did it yourself with no guarantee on the other side that it was going to work out the way you wanted to work out. You have yourself to blame. So I don't like it. The size, I don't like it at all. At all. At all.
Myself out there, put myself up, figured out my housing situation, went to the show that I didn't think I was going to work and ended up working.
Why is he trying to list the housing? What housing is it mean accommodation? He's trying to list that as an accomplishment, as an achievement. That's on your that's not part of your job role, is it? No? You found somewhere to stay. Of course you did. You're in a foreign country. You need a place to sleep. There's hotels everywhere. Why is he making it sound like that's a huge achievement? Strange guy.
I sweat through my shirt, ended up leading the meet and greet, doing the whole thing with the projector, and then my bad, guys. You know what? My bad for working too hard and expecting too much from you guys. That's so you know what? Actually, I'll take responsibility for that. It's stupid of me to go to London and support when I wasn't getting paid. So yeah, you know what? I am a fool. Maybe that really is what it comes down to. It's like
good awareness. Good awareness.
Loyalty, when people say they're loyal to a fault, I was certainly with them, and that should have been a wake up call in itself. Jesus Christ, that was fucking insane. That trip was.
So at least there's some reflection there, some honesty about the situation, but I do feel bad for him. I'm not gonna lie. He was trying his best to show himself and to prove his worth, but instead he just ended up getting exploited because he was too eager. But then his eagerness turned into bitterness and entitlement when he felt like he should have got the roles or the looks that other people were getting in that studio, which is strange as well, by the way. Very, very, very strange. But here we are. So big up Julian. Episode number SW. What's the episode called? SWWP number 20. SWWP 20. Read between the lines. Julian. Check him out. He's got a podcast. Like I said, it's pretty decent. He talks a lot about comedy and shit. So let's see how he continues with that. Because I think before it was the Skeptics Ken guy thing, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, big up Julian. It's unfortunate to learn that Mal is one of those guys that